We're going to use Copilot Chat to complete a lab's entitled Inventory Management by SKU Profitability. We're going to use it to create a fictitious data set, and then evaluate it. So let's go ahead and get started. Usually you can go to m365.copilot.com, and let's assume we had already run some, so we're just going to start by clicking on Start a New Chat, and it does that. And then we're going to give it the first prompt, and because it's kind of long, I'm going to copy and paste it from the instructions, but I'm asking it to create a mock data set that has 200 transactions of various variety of fruit in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and make sure the data is realistic and representative of a small business. So we're going to ask it to do that. Now, one of the things that Copilot does is it immediately, because it's a Microsoft product, it will immediately send it to an Excel file, and that's great. You can have that for background. In the end, I want to keep evaluating it here, but I could just click here and open it up within Excel. So it's kind of a default that way. Next, we're going to ask it to calculate the profit for each transaction. Maybe let's just go ahead and open it real quick, and so we can see what we're looking at, see what it created. But you can kind of see the various transactions here and the dates, and you can kind of see the products, and you can see how many were sold, the unit price, and so forth. And so we're going to work with these variables as we go. Okay, so next we're going to compute profit, sales less costs, and profit margin, this profit divided by sales price. And so we're going to ask it to do that. And once again, it's going to go and default and say, hey, there's a file there. And I'll say, well, I don't really want that file. I want you to do the analysis with me here. And so the next thing I'm going to ask it to do is summarize the data set with the SKUs that tell me which SKU had the highest profits and which one had the highest profit margin. And so let's go ahead and do that, and it's running that task. Now again, just like with ChatGPT, you can see the code that it's running by clicking here, and you can see the Python code. But you can see some summary statistics of the data set. So because I asked to summarize the full data set, and then at the bottom I said give me the SKUs, so it looks like the SKUs with the highest profits are peaches, and the highest profit margin is 50%. And I'm going to look at that and look at it for reasonableness. Usually profit margins would be 40-50% or so, and so that looks acceptable to me. The next thing we're going to ask it to do is provide a histogram. So if you remember, histograms equals counts. And we're going to ask it to give the histogram of the profit margins. So you can guess if the highest is 50%, the lowest is probably 0, and so we're going to see that. Now, sometimes we have errors, and so we ask it to load the data set again, and so let's go ahead and run that. So I often say we learn as much from our failures or the failures of Gen AI as we do with its successes. So here it says, hey, I can't find that file. And so we could click on this, download it. We see it's there within our downloads folder. So let's just go look in our downloads folder and see what we can find here. And here's the mock. So we're going to go ahead and load that up. And we're going to ask again, please provide a histogram of the profit margin of each transaction. Okay. Okay, so here is a histogram of the profit margin. Looks like it's kind of fixated here. We could do some steps, and so we could kind of define the actual ranges or the bin sizes that would help us better to see, because you can't tell if that's, which ones that includes and which one it doesn't. Maybe we can just ask it, could you tell us the bins you used in the histogram? That'll allow us to see, what was used. We could probably do 5% increments or 3% increments and kind of see that. But you can kind of see what the breakdown that it used was, and so you can kind of see what the breakdown is. But that's not as uniform, at least when you're looking at it this way, and so isn't quite as clear. The next thing we're going to do is ask it to provide a histogram of the profits of each transaction. So let's go ahead and run that. So I think this is a little more uniform. You can kind of see that the profits on each transaction, how much they were, and what is there. Now, we want to check that and make sure that is consistent. But this is each transaction instead of each SKU. And so you can kind of see how that looks. We're looking a bunch of transactions of small amounts, but lesser of greater. The next thing we want to do is just talk about the outputs. And so I always like to name the outputs. We could just click on output here, which is share, and but here we want to go ahead and print it out. So let's go ahead and do that. And so it's going to save it to a file, a PNG file. And then finally, I'd like it to output the prompts. So let's have it provide that. Okay, so there's that. It looks like it did not follow my instructions, so I'm going to say, can you provide the PNG for download? Okay, let's change that up. Again, sometimes we learn more from its failures than its successes, and so it's kind of like we need to work with it. Okay, this time it did give us the amount and ability to download it. So finally I'm going to ask it to download the prompts on the screen that we gave it. And we've given quite a few prompts now. Some were useful, some weren't. So let's complete that. Okay, so there's the mock data set. Here's all this. It looks like it doesn't show the repeats that we did a few times here. So that completes this lab.